Ready?
Hey, Roy. Hey, Gareth. Ooh, look at that. Flying logos and aliens and everything. Good cocktail type
All right. Welcome, everybody.
Our open that we haven't seen in a long
Sci-Fi
time.
Distilled. We finally got a way to show the open properly. So I hope you all enjoyed that.
All right. Gareth wants to hear Vangelis music.
Well, that's good for him.
Sorry,
Not
man.
the
You get
same
cocktail
without
music.
Vangelis setting
This
the
is
So
a
mood.
welcome.
cocktail show.
Hey, this week we're gonna talk about the '82 classic Blade Runner. We have Dave Loffredo here as our guest host, who's I guess you're a Blade Runner expert, right? Are you?
Yeah,
We're
I like the
calling you
movie. I've watched the
We're
movie
calling
when
you
it first came out, and many times since then.
Right. So we'll just jump right into it. What is it that is so iconic about this film?
Well, you want me to jump in?
Yeah, you're
Okay.
That's why
Well,
you're
no.
here, Dave.
Wait. First, we have to do our drinking. I
Oh,
thought that
well,
was the
let's do
whole.
our drink.
Right. You know what? He's right.
Look
and
at that.
I was
He knows the
forgetting.
show better than we.
He does know the
Come
show better
on.
than we do. Let me get let's do this. All right. Hang on. We're gonna share again.
Hang on.
Da-da-da-da-da-da. So, okay, there's our screen. Welcome, Dave. We're doing Blade Runner. Oops. No, that's next week. There's our drink.
No,
Sneak preview.
oh, okay.
It's the I meant to do it. I should have done it as the Blade Runner.
There you
That's
go.
okay.
So as you got an ounce of rum, 2 kinds of rum, banana liqueur, blackberry, orange juice, pineapple juice, grenadine. It's a very fruity tropical drink. It does not fit the movie at all, but the name sort of did. So that's how we ended up with the rum runner. That's up on our page if you want to make them. They're actually pretty good. I've had some rough mornings as a result of this drink. So they're quite tasty. So, all right, we're good.
All right, so we'll
All right. Well, I'm not doing the fruity rum
Just
drink. I'm
Blade
doing the
Runner.
whiskey.
Cheers. I have my tiki glass, so
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
salud, gin down.
I've got my whiskey, film noir style, neat in a plain
Which is
glass,
Which is
You know,
exactly what Harris
rooting in my office over the dame that done me wrong.
You needed like to have a coat with your.
And that hat, the
That's
hat.
right.
He didn't have a hat.
Well,
No, he didn't, but the detectives,
The
like
film noir, yes.
when
and
Picard
it
played detective, he
And
had
it did
that
have a
hat.
it did have that feel. In fact, the original cut had narration, which gave it even more of that. Right?
Well,
It-
yes. And so let's jump right in and start making people angry. Because I saw it when it originally, hit the theaters, and there was the narration in there. You have this film noir feel. You have, all of this fits of a piece. And I understand, maybe that was not his original, Ridley Scott, that was not his original intention, or maybe the suits thought it was too vague and people needed a little help, but that's how I saw it. I can't unsee that. So for me, that's Blade Runner.
Well, what I heard from the reason they did it was because they tested the movie with an original cut, and then the audiences were like, we don't know what's going on. So they added some of that in to flesh it out so that people could understand more of what was happening in the film. And that was really a producer's kind of a.
Yeah, and that's a sensible decision, because you don't want to make your audience. You don't want to put a barrier up for your audience. There's parts where you can be vague and let the audience interpret, but you want to bring them along on your story, and you don't want to have a barrier to bringing them along.
Right.
So, if the narration, I can't unsee the narration. That's whether it's there or not. Well, I guess you don't see narration, but whether it's there or not, I have that information. So, it's not bad now that you have special editions that don't have it, because I understand. They didn't, I guess, originally have the title card where they talk about the replicants and
right. That was added also. It was a much simpler one originally. I think it just had the definition of like replicant.
yeah,
And then they added the longer, more detailed, how they rebelled and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
And that title card was very effective because it sets you up in this world where, you know, they've got this euphemism for killing these
Right.
replicants.
Yeah,
Right.
retiring.
They're retired.
Retiring them. You know, that tells you a lot before the first scene rolls. It puts you there. And so I'm very fond of the narration. I don't mind watching it without it, but that's because I've already seen it. I've already had the information and been taken along the journey for that.
But at least with this film, most of the versions, I shouldn't say all, but most of the versions are still available to watch. If you want to watch the original cut, you can go watch the original cut. If you want to see the director's cut, which actually is not Ridley Scott's director's cut, they just called it that. And he kind of went okay after he recut it again. And then, of course, the final cut, which is what the most current one is what Ridley Scott actually did, and he considers it done now.
Yeah.
But unlike some other films, Star Wars, we can't go
Other
back.
directors.
You know, we can at least go and kind of make our own judgment if we want to see, you know, the progression of the different versions.
Yeah.
Well,
I actually like the final cut version. I think
Yeah.
it works quite well.
let me just draw out a point here, though. So the narration was meant to bring people into the world. So there wasn't a barrier there, but there was still plenty that was left open to interpretation that people could look at and draw their own conclusions. One of them being whether Decker was a replicant. You know, in the original cut, it wasn't,
Right.
you know, it wasn't really a major point here or there. And when you talk to Harrison Ford, he's like, no, I thought he was human. When you talk to Ridley Scott, it's kind of like all I hear is like Chris Tucker, you know, yeah, he was a replicant. Yeah. it's like, no, you had this beautiful, subtle sort of situation. He's, oh yeah, he's a replicant. 100%. It's like, you know, sometimes the subtlety, it works well. And so the unicorn sequence, I personally, I feel that kind of detracts from it because it's kind of like hitting you over the head, you know, with the sort of, he's a replicant, check this out, you know.
Yeah,
But,
honestly, the first time I saw that scene, I guess I'm dim because I didn't pick it up that was what they were alluding to, that he was a replicant. I didn't know why it was in there. I was like, why is this in here?
and I, you know, I watched it many times before I picked up on any of that.
Yeah,
you know, but the film stands well.
No, it does.
There was also a unicorn at Sebastian's house apartment too. Just
There was
throwing that out there.
There was everything at Sebastian's house.
Well, yeah, there was everything.
Including the
just
dude
out of
with the
curiosity,
rubber
what
nose.
purpose did it serve Gaff at the end? Like, why would Gaff do that at the very end? Why would he like? I know, I get the symbolism of the origami unicorn, but why? Why tip him off? Why say, hey, you know, just let him go. He did his job. He's done. Oh, speaking of Gaff, there's outtakes, and there's another scene. You know, at the very end where almost yells, "You've done a man's job. Too bad she won't live." There's an outtake. You've done a man's job. If you really are a man, like they were driving it home. Like they
really?
were really driving it home at the end. Yeah.
Oh, I've never
And they
seen
cut that out.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. I think they just stuck it in there to kind of let him know that he knew and he wasn't going to chase him because he
yeah,
could have.
maybe.
He
So,
could have.
but
I think that's what that was. The tip off. The tip
Yeah.
off for me was, I know she's a replicant and you guys are leaving, and I'm not going to go after her or you.
Yeah, that must have been
letting you
it
know.
because all while he was fighting Batty, I truly believe Deckard thought of himself as human. So I was like, so at the very end, what purpose does it serve to be like,
No.
oh, hey, by the way?
We just
Yeah.
think everybody that's watching this kind of knows the film, right? I mean, because we kind of like
Yeah,
jump
guys.
sort of like right into the middle and like split it apart and like
Sure.
maybe
sure.
there's somebody
We're already
watching that
diving
goes,
in.
I have no
we're
idea. I
yeah.
never saw this movie. So I don't know if we need to go a quick synopsis.
I think after 40 years, nobody's really going to be
Oh,
surprised.
got it. Bruce says hello to again. Yeah, you guys have all. I mean, speak up if you haven't, but I think we all got it. So we're pretty free to jump in and kind of deconstruct this thing because I already know how it's constructed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just kind of wondering about that at the very end. I was like, what purpose does it serve? You know, but whatever.
And this was to me, this was such a different film for Harrison Ford. I mean, coming off of Star Wars and Han Solo, it was a very different role for him. Although we know he subsequently can do other things, and
Oh yeah.
but you never know. He's always getting beat up. It's like, it's kind of like Don't Travel with Tom Hanks. It's like, don't get, poor Harrison Ford gets in every movie he's in. He's get the crap beat out of him. It seems, Indiana Jones, he's getting beat up in every movie.
That also lent to the is he or isn't he drama. But yeah, you're right. He is always getting the tar beat out of him. But
let's go back to Gaff for a second there. Let's just summarize the whole theme of the film is empathy. I mean, for me,
yes.
It's all about empathy. The original book was about empathy. This film is about empathy, but in a different way. The original book, I found it kind of hard to read. Well, first because Philip K. Dick is
hard to read.
Wow. But also, it was in the book, the replicants had no empathy. That was their defining characteristic. And so the equivalent of the Void Conf test basically was testing, do you have empathy? And there's this scene where they're tormenting this spider in front of this guy. And it's just very, very harsh. Whereas in this film, I think they made the very good decision to take a different approach. It's, the replicants have empathy. The Void Conf test elicits the empathic response.
Yes.
Yes. Harrison Ford is changed because he has developed empathy. A lot of the human characters don't have empathy. Brian is like this racist authoritarian cop with zero empathy, which, I have to thank the Akutas for doing their Buckaroo Banzai in the time slot that we were originally going to discuss this, because, if we had done it a few weeks back, we wouldn't have had the mindset that we do now, where we look at this and say, well, here's this cop attempting to kill an analog to people of color. It's just, it's each time kind of brings different things to it, but the empathy is the key thing. And
the empathy at the end is what saves Batty at the end. He has empathy for
Harrison Ford.
For Harrison, yeah.
Yes. And
I mean, this we're looking at what happens in this film is the dehumanization of the other.
Yes, absolutely.
And how do you get past that?
Yeah.
Empathy, mercy.
Empathy. Exactly. And so it's a very relevant film.
Very.
It's of a piece that it follows a form of earlier, noir cop films, and so there's a lot to it that's of a pattern. But this is the thing about Ridley Scott. He takes you into a world. He just drops you into this world. He doesn't explain.
No,
he doesn't, and he doesn't try to confuse you. He just puts you there. Before a couple of years before he did this, he did Alien. He just dropped you in. These are working stiffs in space. Go from there.
Yeah,
that's true. He kind of kicks you out of what you expect. He did it with Alien because we always had seen spaceships that were white and clean and perfect and modern looking, and then we get to the Nostromo,
a job site,
which is dirty and dark and water dripping everywhere and more like a sewer than a spaceship. And now we get to whatever city. I don't know if did they ever say what city
it's
it
LA.
is.
It is supposed
is it
to be
LA? I assumed it was LA. So we get to LA 2019. I might add is what.
Oh
yeah.
Where's my flying car?
But the flying cars. Here's the thing. They spent an incredible amount of effort making these flying cars. Were they necessary for any point? No, they were just.
No, they really weren't.
They were just fixtures to show you that you're in this world. They didn't make a big point of it. They didn't explain it. They were just there.
But again,
as part of the world building, and that's what I think one of the reasons people love this film is because it's such complete world building.
Right.
Yes.
And it's like this sort of dystopian, but not really. I mean, we have a lot over modernization. We see it's clearly there's an environmental issue. It's raining all the time. It's never really bright and sunny out. It always looks kind of hazy when it is daylight. It still looks dark.
it's
you know,
leftover Earth.
it's
After
yeah,
everybody is
we have it's
has
over
left.
industrialized. We see the big flames of still, like we didn't still at this point we hadn't learned anything as a race to save. We just moved off world, and even Sebastian makes a comment. There's no housing shortage because everybody's leaving Earth. They're going off to the outer worlds wherever they
Yeah,
are,
the
and
off-world
and, and they're
colonies.
the off-world colonies. So they're so you kind of see this. It's modern. We have flying cars, and but yet it's still kind of dystopian. And the other thing I liked about it, which is some other genres have picked up, or series have picked up on the same thing, is this homogenization of culture, where you
In
have
language,
a lot
yeah.
of Asian, which makes sense. I mean, when you think of how many people live in China, and now that the population would mix, assuming now that now we have jets and we can move, everybody can move around the world, and eventually if you come with a world government where people really would be able to kind of mix,
Yeah.
you would have this. It would be natural, maybe not in 20 years or 30 years, but in a couple hundred years, you might see this homogenization of cultures, and Asian
So-
would be very strong as part of that. Is what
Yeah.
I'm
So
getting.
Gaff speaks city speak, and city speak was Hungarian, French, German,
Yeah, he had some kind of weird its own
Chinese.
language.
It was a
kind of
bunch
thing.
of stuff.
Which
is
Edward
not-
James almost
not
came
unlike-
up with himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, which he did. He did come up with a lot of it himself.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
Now, just getting back to Ridley Scott and his world building, he did Alien, he did this. It's just just drop you into this world. Boom. After this, he did the Apple 1984 commercial. Boom, drop you into this dystopian Big Brother world.
But that one was recognizable because we already
That
had
was
the book.
that was
We had
recognizable.
Orwell or whichever.
But it's still, he just drops you into this.
Yeah.
Before he did Blade Runner, he was attached. So you had Jodorowsky was trying to do Dune back in the 70s, which, oh my God, there's a documentary on Jodorowsky's Dune. If you haven't watched it, watch it. Wow, this is the greatest film that has never been made. So Jodorowsky was a Polish director. He had Salvador Dali coming in to play the Emperor. He had H.R. Geiger in there to do design stuff, all this stuff. Anyway, Jodorowsky, and it also influenced Star Wars because he had this Bible put up of what he was doing, and it went all around the valley. Everybody saw it, including Lucas. And so you see things just ripped right from what Jodorowsky was going to do in Dune, dropped into Star Wars. But that's not the film we're talking about. So anyway, the rights eventually kind of got away from him. I think Dino had gotten them, and Ridley Scott was attached to that. He was going to be doing Dune until something happened. He had to back out, and then he eventually did Blade Runner. But it always makes me wonder what his take on Dune would have been. I bet you he wouldn't have had David Lynch's internal monologue. Now I'm having an internal monologue, and
I will bend like the reed. Yeah. Interesting.
It would have definitely been a completely different film than what we got. Not that the film was bad, but we're not talking about Dune.
We're not. So there's a lot of films that we just talked about that we're not talking about.
That's for another show.
So let's take Dave's central thesis here of man's inhumanity toward the other, and kind of look at the various different ways this movie gets that point across. They do touch on overpopulation and pollution, but that's not the central. When we're talking about our replicants, we see them through emotions, through memories, heavy emphasis on memories, the photos. Leon really wanted to get back to that apartment and get his photos. And identity.
Oh, your precious photographs, yeah.
Your precious photographs, yeah. Identity,
and that's another thing that ties in with the Decker
eyes.
is, he has, his apartment is chock full of photographs.
And they're very old photographs.
Yeah.
They're not
way older than
very, very like from the last century, kind of like turn of the 1800s or turn of the 19th century or whatever. They're all very old photographs for some reason. I really didn't quite get that. I'm like, okay, I mean, I get it's only 2019, but are they trying to say that these are just things that he's collected and he really has no connection to these people, or what? but they're all displayed on his,
Mhm.
wherever they were, whatever that was.
The worship of memory to give you some purpose.
Yeah, the worship of memory. Well, it helps create identity. Your memory informs your personality. Your memory informs your path to morality. It creates personality. And again, as you were saying, the replicants were becoming more human. The humans were becoming less human. And as the two got closer and closer together until finally they were indistinguishable, and that, that's what caused. It's like a little crisis for Deckard. But with Rachel, Deckard regarding Rachel, I don't think.
Well, there's Rachel, but let me just talk about what I think the most powerful scene in the movie is, and it is with Joanna Cassidy. All right, up until that point, we have these replicants. We're kind of told they're robots that look like people, and one got fried running through an electrical field, so you're kind of thinking mechanical and things like that. And he's got Joanna Cassidy. She runs from him, and he shoots her in the back with the mega exploding bullet. She's running through broken glass, blood everywhere. You're like, holy cow, this is no robot. It's shocking.
And did you notice when they turn her body over? A single tear. And she did that on purpose. She comments on that in the extras. She did it on purpose, a single tear to really drive it home.
Yeah, I mean, it's just brutal in the way it hits you, because up to that point, you had this illusion, and this is like just a slap in the face. And for me, that's the most powerful scene in the entire film. And I love the attack ships on fire and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But that is...
And we'll get to that, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
you're absolutely right.
The whole thing is, you say, you talk about, them coming together closer and closer, because we have the humans that have basically recreated slavery, and we're okay with that. We've created a slave race, and we're okay with that, even though now they have to stay off world. We can't use them on Earth, but they're basically still living beings that we're using as slaves. Clearly, they have feelings and emotions, and Terrell keeps trying to improve them, like he did with Rachel, trying to make them more and more human.
Yeah, and how, throughout this entire film, how are they not human? There's no real way that you could say these are not human.
Couple of things I found inconsistencies, though, and I don't know how they explain them. And again, it's just that suspension of disbelief. We have the one guy takes his hand, sticks it in the freezing cold, high nitrogen or whatever it is, pulls out the thing.
Yeah, but he's Rutger Hauer. Rutger Hauer can do that.
Right. But then Rutger Hauer is sitting there putting a nail through his hand, and he's cringing in pain like it's killing it. I'm like, so you can freeze your hand solid, that doesn't bother you, but you putting a nail through.
Okay, so that's it's a flawed masterpiece. So
I wouldn't even, those don't even rise to flaws.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's just these are what I noticed, though, as somebody who's worked in production, so I'm like, inconsistency.
Yeah. So not Garth, Bruce, sorry. Bruce just said, hey, didn't they have false memories? Well, yes, they did have some, but they also had some of their own too. And what made them human is all kind of all wrapped up in the Rutger Hauer baddies Tears in the Ring speech. And Rutger Hauer wrote that line, all this will be lost. He did it. And if you guys want to see what the original stuff was, you can Google it. It's out there if you want to read what the original was. But he kind of picked a few things and did it. And in that one line, or in that one, 4 lines, it's 4 lines. I have seen you people. He says, I have seen things, you people. The use of the phrase, you people. He's differentiating between me and my people and you other. He said, I have seen things you wouldn't believe. So he's saying, I have felt awe. I have seen the most incredible things that inspired emotions in me. Would they inspire emotions in you? How would you react if you saw things? Maybe you wouldn't react the way I did. You are the other. And he says, what was the other point I was going to make? Oh, the implanted memories. He's remembering things that he's seen and how they made him feel. So these replicants have these fake memories, but then they also have their experiences, their actual experiences of what.
Did they imply that they implanted them, other than Rachel, with fake memories? I never got that impression that they had fake memories implanted. I always thought it was just Rachel that had them, because
no, I understood they kind of all did, because it said to soften the blow or cushion the blow so they didn't all go berserk and start killing people.
Well, that's why they gave him the 6-year or whatever it was lifespan.
The
Because
4-year
they said
lifespan, but
once
even that,
once
they
they
still needed a
started
cushion.
to develop their own memories, they started developing their like own personality, and
Yeah.
that's when they started to question what
They
were
didn't
doing.
expect them to develop emotions at all. That's why they gave them the fake memories. They to cushion all that. They didn't expect. They thought they'd be, what am I saying? That you
Well,
grow up.
and part of this is fascinating to watch over the course of the film, because the way that they're playing these replicants are as almost as children on a journey to discovery.
They're
and-
4-year-old. Yes, they're like 4-year-olds. Yes, yes.
And
Yes.
and like Pris, and she's doesn't know what to do, and we're stupid and we'll die, and things like that. And Betty doesn't know how to react when she's shot.
Yeah.
And
His
so
faces. He makes faces that just
yes, he does.
would break your heart. Otherwise, like,
It-
yeah.
it's magnificent. And so let's talk about another film, since we're spending this time talking about other films. In Battlestar Galactica, I read that Tricia Helfer didn't know how to play the Cylons, and Edward James Olmos said, "Go watch Blade Runner."
Rutger Hauer.
And she did, and it like dropped the scales from her eyes, and she's like, "I understand how to play these now," and so-
Interesting.
You could see that they were becoming more human, because the fact they were afraid to die, that they didn't want to die.
Yes.
That was their whole goal, was to find out their inception date so they knew when their clock was going to run out. And in fact, could it be reversed? And I think once Rutger Hauer realized when he kills Terrell right before that it can't be undone. It's part of your genetic makeup.
Mhm.
We can't undo it whether we want it to or not. And clearly he believed that, and then he just pops his eyes out, was kind of
Which
sad.
Well,
again,
that is a scene of rage.
Yeah.
That is a scene of
It is a
undirected
scene of-
rage at everybody and
You're
everything.
absolutely right. It is. But do you see him in the elevator coming down, what his face does in the elevator? He realizes, oh shit. Like, he was rageful at Terrell, but then he realizes, I've just killed, killing doesn't solve my problem. I've just killed the one guy who might have been able to help me. What do I do now? And his face does this thing where suddenly he's like,
I think there's some of that, but I think there's also, he comes to a certain realization that his fate is sealed. He can't change it.
Yeah.
I think that's part of what he's going
maybe.
through. He goes to Sebastian's to get the Pris, and tell her that basically we're the only two left. And or had that already happened? I might be out of order.
No.
What's in there?
Yeah. But and then of course Decker's there, and he feels he's got to,
But yeah,
and of
you're
course,
absolutely
Decker's
right.
already killed. He's already killed Pris by this point.
So, and again, rage. But because I think he's accepted his fate, and he might already, because he's winding down, like he might already feel that happening. So he's accepted his fate. So then he changes, and then he shows mercy toward Deckard.
Right
And
at
he
the end.
shares with him. So now Deckard has these memories. So at least something lives on.
That's true. That is true.
You
I
know,
never really thought of that motivation.
because why else would he? Unless he's really trying to separate us and them, why else would he?
Sure.
I don't know. You'd have to get Ridley Scott on the phone.
Let's get
and ask
Ridley
him.
on. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's a couple weeks. We'll get him on.
We'll see if I can. I'll pull some strings and see if I can get.
Pull
Ridley.
some strings for us, will you, Risen? So yeah, so then that, when you realize the other is not so other, when you realize the other is that much closer to you than you thought, then suddenly your very comfortable position of apathy and your comfortable position of dehumanizing that other, you can't do that anymore.
Nope.
You
And
just
I-
can't.
I think that was a journey that Decker was taking as well when after he meets Rachel, that he started to realize that these aren't just robots that he's hunting down, that they have
Well,
emotions and they're
Dave,
closer.
did your version have the happy ending that you love best? Your version? It
I
does.
love happy endings.
Which is what, them driving out in the country?
Them driving out.
Yeah, it's a simple thing. They live happily ever after. Why wouldn't you do that?
Well, they didn't in the final cut. They don't imply that didn't happen. They just go in the
No, you're
elevator.
right. They don't imply that it didn't happen. You see them leaving. You just
see
don't
them
know
leaving.
it.
We don't know that. Of course, we don't know what happens after that. Assuming you only see the final cut.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm
We
gonna get
assume
younger
that
than
they
you
leave
guys.
and they're
I-
gone. I mean, they didn't need to see them
So
in the.
exactly. I didn't see it in the theater, obviously.
I
I
didn't
would
either.
see it on television. So there was the televised cut too, which is a little bit different.
Right, that's
even.
another version.
So
we never speak
I
of
would
that
see
'cause
that version. Now, as
anything
a
edited for
teenager-
television is terrible. So
Yeah, well, yeah,
just
of
ignore
course.
that.
So as a teenager, I thought this statement on the human condition was that the human condition was boring and confusing, which might not be inaccurate.
Well, I
But-
mean,
but
it's a good point.
It wasn't until I just recently started, doing research and then recently saw this final cut that I was like, okay, it all falls in now. I get, I love this movie. I get this movie. So my cut is the final cut.
Okay.
I agree.
Well, like I said, it's
without
the first one you saw. That's what
Yeah.
sticks with you.
the
Well,
first
the
one
first one I
I
saw
saw was whatever
television, but-
version, which I believe was a theatrical cut,
Television.
which came out on VHS.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see it in the theater, and I rented it
I-
on VHS at a rental store, and pretty much rented it. I'll admit, because it was Harrison Ford. I didn't know anything about the film, but Harrison Ford, Star Wars. So
Oh yeah. Well, Harrison Ford was in his prime then.
and I have to admit that, coming up, when you're, especially, I was a kid, I was probably early teens, I guess, when I saw it, because it was only maybe 84 when I saw it, something like that. So I was just getting near the end of high school. So, and I was like, oh, it's okay. I wasn't
Because you didn't
overly,
You-
I didn't
you
really
gotta-
appreciate it till I saw it again,
Yeah.
as an older, more in, because I always can, like, we've been doing science fiction and we did like Last Starfighter and stuff, and those are really
fun
great,
and light.
but they're fun movies and they're very light science fiction. And then you hit Blade Runner. This was not made for the masses.
Did you know
No.
that Philip K. Dick, back in the 70s, said Americans don't do intellectual. They want shoot 'em ups. They do not.
They want
like-
action, right?
They want action. Americans do not like intellectual movies. And
Yeah, I had a friend of mine who
is
was,
that true?
I had a friend of mine down in Florida who had a master's in cinema, and he was very, he was funny that way. He would always say that. In fact, he started teaching cinema to students, and he would always look at their films and he goes, "You know what's wrong with your film? There's too much damn dialogue. You need to shut up, get in the car, and chase each other."
Well,
Because that's what people wanted to see. And it's like, quit talking to each other, do something.
sure, and that's one of the reasons why they added the voiceover and the title card in front is just you have people coming in with certain expectations. You want to have your film give the message that it wants, but you don't want to create roadblocks for people who aren't really interested in doing a film school analysis of the thing.
Right. I
But-
agree.
I am. I'll
but-
do it.
Because we have to remember one thing. This is still entertainment.
Exactly.
It
So
was
let me
ma-
just
you know.
go back to Mary Beth. Harrison Ford started his journey before we see him. He left the force. He was reluctant.
look
He
at
didn't
wife.
want to come back and do
Yeah.
this. He was arm twisted into doing it. If you're not cop, you're little people. You're
Yeah.
going to do this, and whether you want to or not. And we never know why. We never know why.
Yeah. Did he screw up? Why was he off the force? What happened?
I assumed he was burned
That's a
out.
great
the
point.
feeling. My interpretation was he was burned out.
He was
But
burned
I
out.
could be-
He
you're right.
started
It
to
could
have
be anything. That's
reservations.
just
He-
that's just
was
what I
bitter.
felt. That's what I
That is a
got
great
from it.
point, because I was wondering about that with the false memories and all that. If you're only 4 years old, surely you have, I have an entire lifetime of data, data that's unique to me, data that no one else will ever know. And when I die, it goes with me. But I have an entire lifetime of it. The replicants wouldn't, theoretically, unless they were, were they implanting an entire childhood? How does that work?
Rachel was.
Rachel did.
Rachel was, remember, she was a
She-
special
she was
kid.
She was
teenage.
a nine, and the rest of them were sixes. I can't remember.
I don't even know.
They
Did he even,
Did you
did
guys
that-
ever
that
notice
never
that
point.
even
the
classified
Nexus,
her.
and Nexus means not Nexus, but Nexus sounds like next us. They're the next us. They're the
Oh,
new humans.
interesting point.
Never mind. Anyway, the point is
Cylons. They're going to be Cylons.
Cylons and yeah. Anyway, what was I
So-
going on with
So,
that? Can't
well,
remember.
Sean Young, let's talk about Rachel. She was perfect. Talk about your film noir,
Femme fatale, yeah.
well put together. She's just so prim and
Porcelain
perfect.
doll.
And yes, and you see her just broken. She doesn't know who she is anymore, and then you get that. She turns to Decker, ends up saving him from Leon, and just doesn't know who she is or where she belongs, and they have those scenes together, and it's they're both trying to find a way.
Yeah.
So
She
just- I
cried.
don't wanna
He
ignore
told her
our-
those. Yeah.
I don't want to ignore all our folks that are watching.
And neither do I, because they wandered off. They're
Kinda
talking about
talking and-
Flash now.
I feel like we're
Apparently-
ignoring you guys, and I don't want you to feel like you're being ignored, because I am reading your comments. But I Marianne Yates was asking, wasn't he? I assume Decker was tired of killing replicants and saw them as more than human than he thought. Yeah, I mean that's kind of was I think what we were kind of getting at, that was at least his journey. I don't know if that's why he retired initially. We don't know.
We don't know.
Hi, Marcia.
Yeah, Marcia says she thought Sean's acting was really stiff. Sean was really inexperienced, and Sydney Ripley thought that would play in her favor.
Yeah, Rob Barnes saying Harrison hated Sean Young. I heard she was very difficult to work with on more than just this
She
film.
admits she's like, I was like a little puppy. I needed a lot of like controlling.
And it kind of I think that, and in Hollywood, as you know, it doesn't take much to become not blackballed, but definitely shoved aside. And I think
She hasn't. And what
that
else
hurt her
has she
career. I
really
mean,
done?
she did that, and then the next thing you saw her in was what? She was in Stripes. I'm not sure where that fell, if that was after that. And then, she had a few movies here and there, and then Ace Ventura was her big comeback, and Einhorn, and and after that, I mean, she hasn't really done a lot.
Bruce says, "What do you think of 2049?" Well, we don't want to dive too deep into that, but it did extend the story.
Let me just say a few words about 2049. It was an interesting take on the story. It was very unpleasant, though. Jared Leto is creepy as hell. Oh man, is he?
Yes,
but
he is.
Originally they wanted David Bowie to play that role, but he passed away. Which I don't know if that would have been better or not, because that was a creepy role, and whereas
I don't know, that could have worked with Bowie. Bowie's kind of creepy.
It could have, but with
Sometimes
2049, I look at that as a sort of different movie, because with Blade Runner, you're focused on what is it that makes us human. And 2049 is more of an obsession on women's bodies and reproduction, and the need to control that.
Yeah,
and it's making a different point. It's in the same universe.
It was that Rachel had the baby, which isn't. I don't object to that plot point. That's fine. They could have extracted, but then it took some hard lefts a couple times, and it did. He's right. It got.
Well, I think it could have been tightened up.
Yeah.
Like, it was a little too long. The things I liked about it, I liked that they kept the same feel, at least for me. I felt the feel of the movie was the same as far as the atmosphere, the sound, the music, and everything was very similar. So you felt like you were back in that same universe. I found again, I try to compartmentalize, because I know you're talking about, 30 years later or whatever it was, 40 years later or whatever. I mean, so do we want the same exact movie? Just kind of, we couldn't pick it up because Harrison Ford's significantly older now. I thought it was cool that they threw him in there. They could have done it completely separate storyline and not had him in there at all. I think you could have got away with that too. Honestly, I think you could have come up with a storyline along without him in it. But I guess the whole point was to see what
The whole point was his kid too. So
yeah, I know that was the point. I'm just saying they could have, with a different storyline, they could have made it and put it in the same universe, and it had it work.
Yeah, Marcia says you're convincing me not to watch. It's worth a look. I mean, come to your own.
I saw that one in the theater. I think it's worth watching. I wouldn't say it's a waste of time. If you liked Blade Runner and you really like that movie and you like the feel of that movie, I think you will be okay.
Bruce says Sean has done a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, but nothing. Her career really just. I think it took a hit after, because I think people were.
I think it did too. I don't
not
know.
well liked in Hollywood. So.
Garth is pro 2049. He gave it a thumbs up.
So you really got to watch it and make your own decision.
But we're not. We don't want to focus too much on that one tonight. Let's get back to Blade Runner and its
But it is the elephant. in the
Dark and
room.
dreary, rainy.
Always raining. Well, almost always, I should say. Not all
Well,
the time.
you know, they did some fantastic things with the Bradbury Building, which is a real building
Yes.
in
Yep.
downtown LA,
Yes.
and taking it, you know, they drop you into this world, and it's left to you to kind of figure out that everybody's left. There's really just the dregs left on Earth, where Sebastian basically remarks to Roy Batty, you know, it's you know, you're too perfect. You know, we don't see people like you around here, you know, and so it is the leftover Earth. You know, there's
Right.
plenty of space for everybody because there's no crowding. There's just all the leftovers, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there is still overpopulation. I think that's one of the in the cities because it's supposed to be megalopolis. It's not Los Angeles and San Francisco. It's now Los Cisco or some weird thing.
Maybe, but I think
Or
it's
Diego, Los
more,
Angeles, Diego.
more leftover buildings, you know, because
Yeah.
Well, he makes the comment, there's no housing shortage here.
Yeah, there's
Sebastian
no-
had the
yeah.
Bradbury Building basically to himself.
Which
Yeah.
is weird because I
It's in
could have sworn they were pushing
decrepit shape.
overpopulation too. But whatever.
Yeah, it was in decrepit shape, water damage everywhere, you know.
Right.
A
Because of
DC
the
Super
rain.
would have been on that roof issue right away, you know.
Right. Yeah, clearly nobody was tending to the building. Amazing that the elevator worked. Probably Sebastian kept it running, being a kind of sciencey guy.
Yeah, I saw in just getting ready for this, I was just looking around a little bit, and I saw somebody had put together a description of how they built the sets for Blade Runner. And there's a New York street at the studios in the back lot, and they had basically just redressed New York.
Yeah, the whole
to
street.
be this LA 2019. And it was really kind of fascinating how compact those sets were, but it just looked like all over the place. You know, Taffy Lewis, let me just say, I loved the video call. He's in Taffy Lewis's bar. He calls Sean Young on the video phone. I swear that was the same phone that they used in 2001, but it's just, it probably isn't. But to me, that's what it said. It's like, here's the phone from 2000.
Well, he did the same thing where it shows
but
the
it
charge
is-
at the end.
Yeah,
is
$1.25.
Yeah, it shows you. it's-
burnt and graffiti covered and just trashed.
Maybe
This
it
is
was. I don't
2000.
know.
I don't think it was, but it did give you the same feel. Like I said,
It
kind of
certainly
shows
did.
you the charge digitally. It says, charge $1.25 or whatever for the call.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the only set piece that I caught that was reused was the top of the police tower. It's like this.
They've used
Okay,
that
no,
over and
sure.
over again in other films.
Yeah, that was the bottom of the Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that was Sid Mead. He did a bunch of stuff, and he did work on the Star Trek: The Motion Picture. That was like the only Star Trek connection I could make. If you Google Blade
Oh,
Runner
yeah,
and
because we
Star
have to
Trek-
connect everything to Star Trek.
Yeah, because all rows.
Yeah.
So here's our all rows section, which is going to be very short because there's not much. It's Sid Mead. Oh, my thing is talking. It's Sid Mead, and that if you Google it, Star Trek and Blade Runner, mostly what comes up is a lot of comparisons of the new Picard series, the
Okay,
Picard
okay.
series and Blade Runner, which is interesting. And if you're into the Picard series, a couple of them are worth a read. But if you're not, then no. So, and that was about it. There's not a lot of links, not too much going on there.
Well,
Well, you've got, James Hong. We have to talk about James Hong.
James Hong.
All movies with
I
James
love
Hong
him.
are excellent movies.
They are excellent movies. Big Trouble in Little China, best movie ever.
That's right. The Kung Fu Panda. I just immediately, getting ready for this Blade Runner thing, in my mind, it popped an image, Paul, you've had the eye dream,
well, yeah. Was it Brian? Is it Brian James? That's the guy.
Brian
that was
James?
in,
Brian
he's been in a ton of
James, yeah.
stuff. Of
Oh,
course,
yeah. But Fifth Element,
and-
It's
and
good
other
to see him in
Tons of
that.
stuff.
I mean, so
It was
these
a great
there's
cast.
certainly-
Almost is amazing. William Sanderson, who played Sebastian, he's cool and he pops up a lot.
Yes.
He's so
Yeah.
recognizable. He has that accent and he doesn't drop it for any role. He talks the way he
Right,
talks.
I mean, you know,
Well,
we
wasn't
saw
he
him-
in Newhart? Wasn't he one
He
of
was
the
in Newhart,
He
Daryl?
was
True
he was the
Blood.
Daryl, other brother Daryl. He was also in Deadwood. He had a
He was,
very
yeah, he was in
okay.
Deadwood. He's
Deadwood
been
excellent,
around,
excellent
man.
job in Deadwood. Yeah, he was in if you're into True Blood, he was played sheriff in there. So yeah, he's been around. God, he's just prolific when you look at him. He's one of those character actors that he kind of plays the same character.
Yep. Doesn't
You know,
drop
because
the
he has that same. You're right. He has a very distinct voice, but yeah. So there are
But-
some. You know, it's funny that
Howard.
there's a lot of
Rutger
people that are in this film when you kind of go back and look and that are, you know, clearly popular actors.
Daryl
And you know
Hannah.
the guy who played Holden at the beginning.
Oh yeah,
uh,
he was in something too.
Well, but interestingly, he was who they were using to test read
Morgan Paul.
against Harrison Ford.
Oh really?
And so he was Harrison Ford's essentially stand-in for all the test reading, and then they cast him as Holden, and just shot him in the first 5 minutes. But,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Leon shot first. So he was armed. Holden was armed. You don't see it. It was under the table. And he
yes.
had both his hands above the table quite a bit. But right at the most tense moment, the tell me about your mother moment, both men, if you look at them, they're both sitting with their arms down. And so all you see is the torso and they're looking at each other. And then
Okay.
Leon shoots. And when Holden spins, you just catch the gun in his hand.
No kidding.
It was
I
mounted under
never
the table,
noticed
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So do you suppose there'll be a George Lucas special edition where Holden
Holden
shoots
shoots
first
first.
and over his shoulder and then
I
No.
hope not. Oh, I hope not.
No, I think Ridley Scott's done with this film.
I think he is too.
Yeah, I think he is too.
He's and again, I think his final cut is good. So which is unusual because a lot of times you see these re-edits and you're like, because you're so in love with the original one. You know, I think that's part of it. You don't see their vision of what it could have been, but I actually like this version. I don't miss the narration, and maybe because I know the story and I don't need it.
That's the thing. I can watch any of them now and enjoy them, but it's because I watched the original, because I saw the narration. I went through that. I know what they're trying to say. I know where my mind replaces all these.
The other thing, we're just jumping back to the city, and I love one of the things I did the last time I watched this is I looked beyond the story. In other words, I was looking at everywhere else but what was happening.
Mhm.
I do that occasionally on a lot of stuff because I want to
There's
see
a lot
things
to
in
see
the
in this
background.
movie.
And I love, like, you'll see the advertisements, of course, that were always everywhere.
Oh
That's
yes.
huge.
Like,
Actually,
I love
that
looking
is
and
huge,
seeing-
Rizzo.
Seeing companies that no longer exist that were
Yes.
so, even in 1982, were so, you think, assume they would be like Pan Am. There's a big
Yes.
Pan Am thing.
A
It's like
couple
Pan
of
Am is
them
all
were
gone,
really were on purpose, though. Did you guys? And the only one I can think of is the biggest one. Did you guys notice the ad that was behind Batty as he died? It was for
It was
TDK,
like TDK or something.
which
Yeah.
is cassettes,
Yeah, yeah.
things that record, things that hold memories, things that save things. Save your thoughts, your ideas, your memories for other.
I think you might be stretching the point there, but that is a good one.
There's a couple other just like the two. I meant to say really quick. There's other two teeny tiny little Star Trek things. One is this movie reminds me of that Roddenberry quote, which I don't know the exact words, but the basic paraphrase of it is, "Hey, if you people can't handle differences here on this planet, you're not going to go to space." That's what this movie reminds me of. Like
Yeah.
And the other thing was, as I was researching for this thing tonight, I clicked on what I thought it was. It was a Blade Runner thing. And the first thing that popped up was a conversation between Picard and Guinan. And it's the conversation where Guinan is saying there have always been disposable people.
Wow.
There have always been slaves there. And it's this whole conversation. And for a hot second, I thought I clicked on the wrong link, but then I kept running it. And that was the guy's thesis. Again, back to man's inhumanity toward the other, and how there's always been disposable. There's always been a disposable class. And how we treat them.
Well, yeah, after 40 years, it still speaks new things to us,
Yeah. And as you said at the top of the hour, so applicable today.
Deep.
Wow, I don't recall that conversation between Picard and Guinan.
They're in 10 forward. I can
I expect they are, but
All right, you got to go back through all, like,
Yeah,
200
8
something
seasons
episodes.
of Next Gen.
Watch them all. Find the one.
What uniform was he wearing? Maybe it was one of the movies. No, she was wearing Next
The
Gen.
original series, I have an instant recall. Next Gen takes me a while.
Yeah, exactly. I'm right there with you on that one.
Sure,
Yeah,
well, we.
Right.
My
But anyway,
friend,
getting back to what I was saying, Coca-Cola, I don't know what if they paid her or was just by the Coca-Cola was everywhere.
Yeah,
I don't know
Coke was
why. If
everywhere.
there's something there, everywhere you look, there was a Coca-Cola sign.
But there were a couple eye references, and
everywhere.
there were a couple of the memory or saving references too.
And actually, the woman that's on the Asian woman that's on the big blimp thing.
yes.
It's like kabuki.
Really
it's like kabuki.
She's actually a known actress. Like you could look up her IMDb.
Oh, really?
And she's actually given credit, and she's in there. Yeah, and she's done other things that
in America, or is she's Asian?
She's Asian.
She's Asian.
Yeah. She's on the big blimp, like she's part of the advertisement. She's not actually a character.
Yeah, she was up there pushing pills or something.
We don't know what it was.
Kabuki or no theater, like it was a kabuki thing going on in the.
But I mean, it was just funny that she wasn't just some random like model they got. She actually was an actress.
Garth is mad. Back to
credits, and she actually.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway.
You don't control us. We're going to go wherever we want. Damn the torpedoes. We're going to talk about all the movies.
Yeah.
All the movies. So yeah, let me look at my
Listen,
notes.
Last night we had a little test run to just test out the cameras. We ended up talking about a solid hour about all manner of things. So
everything
just don't get in our way.
Did you guys hear, speaking of another thing that's applicable, like timely and applicable, did you guys hear the Xenophobia Sucks story about Ridley and the crew?
No. Oh.
So during production.
Oh, yes.
The crew was by all accounts very hardworking. Like no one was slacking off, by what I've heard from the other producers. But for some reason, during an interview, Ridley told a newspaper, "Yeah, I just prefer working in England because when I say, okay, crew, let's go,' the crew goes, 'Yes, governor,' and off they pop, right?" And the American crew took great offense. Like they really got insulted because they're like, "We're working hard too. What's wrong with us?" So they had made up these T-shirts that said, like, "Yes, governor, my ass." And so to counter it, Ridley made up this Xenophobia Sucks T-shirt, which is kind of interesting because isn't that like sort of
that's kind of the point they were trying to make,
Yeah. So that, and then he made up a baseball hat as a governor or something on it. But yeah, they had a little skirmish, little
drama on set. Good gee, that's never happened on a film. I think every film has its
every film has
some kind of little stories going on in the background. So, but that doesn't surprise me. But
well, let's talk about Ridley Scott just a little more. Like I said, he seems to be the master of dropping you into a period piece for a period that never existed. Alien is a period piece for a period that never existed. Blade Runner is a film noir period piece for a period that never existed. You've got
Legend or
there's Legend, there's Gladiator, which I guess that period definitely existed, but it's still it's a period piece, just drops you in there.
Yeah.
And you're off and running.
He's brilliant. He knows what he wants, but remember when we did Star Wars, I was saying George Lucas didn't like to coax the performance out. He's another one who doesn't like to coax the performance out of his actors. Yeah, Ridley doesn't give. It sounded like he didn't give them much. Okay. I was interested to hear Harrison spoke incredibly highly of Rutger Hauer. Like Harrison doesn't say much, but he was like, that was the best experience of my professional career. He's like, Rutger gave me so much as an actor. Rutger, I think Rutger liked Harrison as a person very, very much. Rutger did not like the character of Deckard. He thought the character was badly written, and he thought the character was stupid.
Really?
And he said, if that character had been written properly, I wouldn't have been so shiny.
Oh.
That's exactly what he said. It was really interesting. Yeah. Of course, Rutger fully subscribed to the theory that he and the replicants were the heroes of the story, and Deckard was the bad guy, which you have to if you're an actor, and that's your thought process.
Sure. Well, if you're not playing the bad guy as the hero, you're doing it wrong.
You're doing it wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. Because every bad guy thinks they're a hero.
Because
that's what makes them interesting.
But he just, he did not. But he was given really specific things, like he gets beaten up too easy. He gets jumped too easy. He's not smart to figure out things. Like, he just didn't like the Deckard character. I think he really thought it could have been stronger.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, certainly in that final scene, I think Deckard, especially being armed, could have had the upper hand.
Yeah.
Several points, but
several times. Well, he had the gun in his hand and took it away from him.
That's another little pet peeve. I know you guys don't like pointing out, but I'm like, when he jams his hand through the wall and grabs Deckard's arm and pulls it through the wall. Okay, Batty's hand comes through the wall, grabs it. How the hell did he know where the hell his hand was?
Oh, yeah.
Because he's superhuman.
He can see through the wall.
He's Rutger Hauer.
I guess he can see through the wall. I guess.
But that's the whole point about that whole end scene, is that Rutger Hauer at that point knows he's dying. He just doesn't give a rat's butt anymore, and he's kind of playing with Harrison Ford. He doesn't know where he's going. It's just they're playing out the end of his life. You know? How are you going to react if you're in a situation?
He's like a cat with a mouse, toying with a mouse.
Yeah.
I think that's the way he's doing that, because Batty had plenty of opportunity to kill him.
Because when Deckard fought back, he goes, "Yeah, that's the spirit."
Yeah,
yes,
like he wanted
exactly.
he wanted it to be a game almost with him. There was clearly, like I said, it's just a niggly thing. It's not like it certainly ruined the experience for me, but this is how my brain works. I just pick this stuff up and go, how? So fault me for it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, do you guys have any questions on the audience there? I want to see, because we only have a few minutes going on here.
Bruce is
no,
saying
we're going to keep talking for another hour.
Yeah, we can go another. Bruce is saying Roy was supposed to be shiny. He was supposed to be superior, and we needed his journey. But I don't know that.
Well, he was physically superior.
Maybe he did need to outshine Deckard. I don't know. Deckard was just so knocked down.
I don't know if they ever implied that they were did they say they were mentally superior? They just
yes.
Oh yeah, right.
Remember at the very beginning they showed them in the bald caps, or the caps on, and the head spun around and it gave the data like intellect. It went, and one of them was a political homicide, like meant to kill politicians. I don't know. And it said what they did, and Leon was dumb. Like, he had a low intellect but a very high strength, and all he did was load.
Right, he was meant to be like a worker.
He was a loader or something. Chris was a pleasure model, which I kind of didn't get. If they were off fighting and if they were off in combat, why do we need a pleasure model?
Well, she was entertaining the troops, I guess.
Yeah, but what troops? The other replicants? Like, so there were.
No, I think they implied that they were all replicants that were.
I guess there were humans out there. Okay,
there were
whatever.
humans out there too.
Yeah, I guess so. Because in the ads, go live off world, new shiny adventure.
The whole thing was go live off world.
Interesting. And then Zora, I don't remember what her deal was, and Roy was like the smartest.
Zora was the kick murder squad.
Yeah, she was like an assassin.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So you've created these disposable people, and now what happens?
What happens when you have disposable people who know they're disposable?
And it's yet another cautionary tale about, no people are disposable. Everybody has some value somewhere, and
I want to give
to themselves.
For our guests to our things.
Oh yeah, let me hear you. I'll tell you what. So next,
Garth's asking, I guess, is this? Do you think this is based? I think what he's saying is this Harrison's best film.
Yeah, it is regarding Deckard.
So, I think he was asking what is our opinion of Harrison's best film.
Garth, are you asking if this is? I think
he's asking Harry. He just says Harrison Ford's best film.
Even though I think Harrison Ford did.
I think he's asking if we think this is his best film. That's what I got from that. But
it wasn't the one where he was the president jumping out of the plane. All right, guys, so super quick. Well, you guys are thinking about Harrison's best film. Roy, this Friday he's doing a movie that scared the tar out of me when I was a little kid. This Friday, his guest is going to be Ross and Miko, and they're doing The Black Hole. Wasn't that a Disney film? It was terrible.
It was the first PG Disney film ever.
I thought he was having the Space 1999 guy back this Friday. Or was
that's Sunday.
Nick Tate? Oh, yeah.
Nick Tate. So Maximilian was this robot with spinning thing. It was horrible. It scared me. At the end, it's like a demon, and it's got all its arms.
Yeah, that film, it was good, but I mean, it was definitely out of Disney's kind of wheelhouse a little bit.
It was out of their comfort zone, but there was some neat stuff in there.
There was it had some potential. There has been a lot of talk of a sequel.
Or a redo.
Basically what happens to them after they go through. We see them kind of go back and we see Earth, but we don't know if that's really Earth or just.
It's another one that's kind of flawed, but
if I had to have an opinion on it, what I think they should do, because I think it's ripe for a kind of a revisit.
I really like
do it as a prequel, and we see how the Cygnus ended up.
Yep.
Next to the black hole, how that whole story played out before the Palomino got there.
Exactly.
That's what I think they should do.
So Roy, we just did Friday for you, so you can have Friday off. On Sunday, at a special time, at 4 p.m, he's having Nick back again. If you guys didn't catch Nick the first time, he's amazing. He just sits there and tells like all these incredible stories, and you're just like, what?
Yeah,
he's awesome.
Yeah, he's pretty neat, pretty good. So,
well, let's talk about the black hole for a second. We've stripped mined Blade Runner. Let's move on.
We'll leave some stuff for Roy. We don't want to rip off his whole show.
Roy.
No. I want to talk about this for a second. Black hole. One of the interesting things that I just recently found out was that I watched it and I was astonished at the star field. In some of the early, some of the effect shots, it just looks so different from anything that I had seen before or since. And I came to find out that one of the reasons is that they filmed that in a blackened room with the stars behind. So they had created like a million little pinpoints of light and put the model in that room and filmed it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it wasn't blue screen.
If you want to talk about that model of the Cygnus, that was like the quintessential haunted spaceship. I mean, it is.
Oh, the Cygnus was magnificent.
It's very in a lot of ways.
And then it kind of lights up when they, like it's like all of a sudden this thing's coming alive. No, I don't want to steal the whole thing. We could talk about it.
And Roy says, see you on Friday, David.
Yeah. So getting back to, this is certainly in Harrison's top 5 best films. I gotta say, I think for me, my favorite film that he's in is probably Raiders, which we're doing next week.
Some more Harrison next week.
But this is definitely, I think, it for an actor, I think it's definitely up there for his acting and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Harrison.
I don't know if it's his best film.
Anything he's in, because he plays the everyman in an extraordinary situation to a T.
Yeah. But the quiet everyman.
But he's very cool.
It's kind of like William H. Macy plays the everyman in the extraordinary.
Yeah, and they're very different.
The same way, but they're not the same,
No, I
don't think William H. Macy can take a punch like
he's that stoic man kind
of.
Yeah.
But he's relatable in all his movies. You know what I'm saying? It seems like he's like you ever felt like he's somebody you can't relate to. That he's somehow, I don't know.
So if you have the screen on this show next week, we will be going back, getting ourselves.
Which we already kind of saw.
Harrison Ford, and joining us will be. None other than Dave Galanter. Yay, Dave!
If you don't know who Dave is a Star Trek author.
He just wrote Dead Endless.
Yeah, he wrote a bunch of Star Trek novels, which I'm sure we'll touch on next week with him, because we have to give him his props.
And he is a very good friend to the set tour.
Yep.
So,
and there's a nice, if you ever watch any of my old Neutral Zone videos, I did an interview with him. You can watch that. It's about, 8 minutes long or something. Yeah. And get some insight on Dave. So we're gonna do one of my absolute favorite movies of all time, Raiders.
Yeah. So
and notice I have put it the correct. It's Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's not Indiana Jones, which they.
And the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah, I know.
I just wanted to point it out that is the correct.
The week after that, we are going to do something a little different because, and Roy Belquist, this is your fault. I jokingly said, Roy said on Roy's show, Roy made me watch it. We're going to do Roy made me watch it. And we took that idea and ran with it. So Rizzo and Ken Schmidt, the guest hosts after the week after Dave Galanto will be Ken Schmidt, and Ken and Rizzo have decided they're going to pick a movie that Mary Beth has never seen, and they have chosen, drum roll please, Army of Darkness,
Yeah.
which I have great trepidation about. So I will be watching that for the first time ever in my life, and I will be reporting back, and that'll be the 24th with Ken.
And then there's some more exciting stuff coming down, which we don't want to tell you too much because we have some other stuff that's in the works that it's going to be. And let's put it this way, you Star Trek fans are definitely going to want to tune in.
Yep.
So
Cool.
So with that, I think it's 8:06, and I think we will say thank you, everybody, for coming. Of course, Dave, thank you for coming. And
anytime. Happy to do that.
Blade Runner, and I'm sure we will have you back at some point. Everyone, once again, please stay safe, stay separated, and enjoy the week until we'll see you next week.
All right, bye-bye, folks.
Bye,
Hasta la
guys.
vista, baby. When we get this, I gotta do this.